The clone theme. Do you know that theme? It's the
Oh, yeah. Okay. You were just singing it poorly. I'm just kidding.
to hear you give it a shot.
I'm kidding.
Star Wars. We're talking Star Wars. All of the Star Wars. Isn't this fun?
Isn't this fun?
Hey, everyone, and welcome back to another Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Melissa.
And I'm her older brother, Matt, who also hosts the show. Was that a good intro for me?
That's a great intro. That's about all they need to know.
That's all they need to know.
That's all they need to know. What's going on today, Matt? How you doing?
Well, I didn't get to watch the episode. I didn't get to record a reaction video this week because I had a very busy weekend. Side stuff, boring stuff. The listeners probably don't care, but I'm getting married and I'm engaged and I'm getting married. So this weekend I had to go look at some wedding venues and stuff. So I didn't get to watch the episode until about 30 minutes ago, and we're recording this on Sunday. So this is all very fresh in my mind, but I didn't get a chance to record a reaction video. But my life is busy, but I'm very happy with this episode. I thought it was great, and I think there's a lot to get into. So I'm excited to talk today. How about you? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Side note, for those who don't know, Matt actually is engaged to Captain Howzer.
That's true. That's true. I saw him in last week's episode, and I was just swept off my feet. And I immediately sent him an email. And he got back to me and we're getting married. So that's fun. So anyone else was simping over Howzer just now, I stole him from everyone. So sorry, but that's why I was looking for wedding venues.
Congratulations, Matt. We're so happy for you and Howzer. I'm sure you guys will be very happy together.
It's an exciting time. I'm sure there's a lot of jealous fans out there, but hey, it's fine. All right. We move on. Deal with it. I got him, and you don't have him, and no one else can have him.
Welcome to another Star Wars podcast where Matt and Melissa simp over Howzer.
Yeah,
that's a great.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this too. It's like I was rewatching some of our clips from last week. I was like, wow, we really laid it on thick with the Howzer stuff. But what do you want me to do? Sorry, I call it how I see it.
You can't put a clone that gorgeous in a show and then not expect the fans to go berserk.
Yeah,
so anyway, there will be plenty Howzer conversation in this episode, so nobody worry, it's fine. We're going to continue to simp over him.
Oh, there's so much to talk about with him. But first, actually, before we get into that, Star Wars news.
Oh, right. Go ahead. I know what you're talking about, but
the
go ahead.
Star Wars news. Okay, I'm glad you do, because Star Wars, The Mandalorian got nominated for, what is it, 17 Emmys? Something like that?
It was like 20.
There's a lot.
I'm going to look it up.
Either way, it's a lot of Emmys. I thought it was 17, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I counted it wrong because I'm a stupid idiot. But yeah, they got nominated for a bunch of Emmys, which is so deserving, by the way. It makes me very happy because it's, first of all, it's on Disney Plus streaming platform, but also it was a fantastic season. Some of the best TV I've seen in recent memory. So I'm very glad about that. I'm happy that they get those nominations. They deserve it. I think they got nominations for some of them being best director, cinematography, effects. I mean, what else? I mean, there's best supporting actors, right? A couple of the actors got nominated.
Dude, it got nominated for 23.
23. Okay, so I am a stupid idiot. I don't know how to count.
Whoa, but that's incredible.
It's a lot.
Well deserved.
Well deserved. Like stunt coordination, costumes, I think was another one. Music. I mean, they are getting a lot of good recognition here. So I think that's worth bringing up.
Absolutely it is. And 23 is a lot. I mean, like
a ton.
Everyone I feel like on that show should get good recognition because you can just see how much love and effort they pour into it. Like they don't miss. They really don't. So congratulations to everybody.
They should win
involved.
A lot of those too. I don't know who else would contend with them in a lot of these, like cinematography, costumes, directing, best drama series is I think another one they got nominated for. Like the sound mixing and the sound editing. I always talk about that stuff because I love it, but like it was so well done. So props to the creators and anyone who's involved with Mandalorian, because you guys deserve every single one of those nominations.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a great way to kick off the show. And Following up with those news, I also heard a rumor circulating last week that for the Kenobi show, there may or may not be some Inquisitors involved. In particular, one character that was in Star Wars Rebels called the Fifth Brother. And that character was rumored to be appearing in the Kenobi show. So I'll be interested to see if that actually comes through, because I think that would make sense for that timeline.
Where'd you hear that?
There was an article circulating. I think there was an actor involved too. God, I don't know what his last name is, but
any news with the Kenobi show, I'm interested in hearing about, because that's like the most hype I've been for a TV show.
Oh yeah,
maybe ever is this show. I cannot wait. And the anticipation has been building ever since they announced it initially, like 2 years ago or however long ago it was. I cannot wait for this. So having Inquisitor, dude, they're gonna do so much cool stuff with that show. I can't wait.
Yeah. So it says, the article says Obi-Wan Kenobi's, God, forgive me, I don't know how to pronounce this actor's name, but I'm not good at this, as you guys know. But the article says Obi-Wan Kenobi's Sung Kang, one of the actors cast in the Kenobi show, reportedly playing a familiar Star Wars Rebels villain. And then the article references the fifth brother from Star Wars Rebels, who was an Inquisitor that pursued the Ghost crew in that show, which could be very cool. So I think they're going to make a lot of great tie-ins with the Clone Wars and Rebels in the Kenobi show, and I'm for it. Like, bring on all the characters.
I'm totally for it. And this goes to what we talked about last week too, with them. You know, some people were complaining, like, I'm sick of the same characters coming in and they're recycling and stuff. No, I love this. They're intertwining characters from all the different shows, and they're building this universe, which is very cool. It's similar to, I think, Marvel in a way. Like, Marvel did a very good job of, this long period of time intertwining all these character stories. That's pretty cool. But that's kind of similar to what Star Wars is doing. It's this long build, intertwining these things, filling in gaps that hadn't been filled in yet. And this is another good example of how they're probably going to do that. And they're going to follow through, and they're going to do a great job. So that's cool to hear.
I think you're totally right. I like seeing the universes being tied together. So bring it on. Like, let's just freaking go. The Obi-Wan show, I'm just been ready for this for the last 10 years.
Oh my God. I know. I think I'm more hyped for Obi-Wan. Like, I remember when Revenge of the Sith was coming out, and that was like the most excited I've been for a piece of Star Wars content. But this Kenobi one, I'm feeling just as excited for. Like, when I first press play on that first episode, it's going to be like I was in the theater for Attack of the Clones for the first time, or Revenge of the Sith for the first time.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be crazy. Oh God. And Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor just being in the same room. Oh my God. I'm going to have an overload. Like, it's going to be great.
I know. It's just going to be it's essentially, what is it? 6 episodes or something? They're going to be like an hour.
Yeah.
It's like just a 6-hour long Kenobi movie. I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh God. I can't, you guys, we're going to be going nuts on this show. When that show comes out, I'm pretty sure you and I are going to be,
we're going to have very long episode breakdowns, I think, with that one.
Those are going to be like
some heifer of episodes.
They'll be crazy. But speaking of breaking down episodes, let's talk about the 12th episode of Bad Batch. This week, the episode title is Rescue on Ryloth, and the description for this week's episode is: the Batch is tasked with a dangerous mission. I can't speak. The Batch is tasked with a dangerous mission.
There you go. With that, you got it.
I did. I got it. I got it. Go ahead, Matt, before I embarrass myself further.
So, no, you're fine. You're all good. So, initial thoughts from me. Hot Clone is back. Howzer's back. That's the number one thing we all need to care about. Get some really cool developments from him in this show. Another thing that's like kind of a general overarching thing with the whole episode was, I don't know, I'm just crazy or something. I don't know if you felt the same way, but I thought the animation in this video or in this episode was really cool. Like the movements were really cool. Like the facial expressions, it just was really realistic. It felt super realistic for, a cartoon, an animated series. And I thought the dialogue was great. I thought, like, it just felt very real, and it felt very well put together, and like the story was super well thought out. So that was like just an overarching thing, I thought. The other thing was the Death Trooper vibe we get with Crosshair's little crew. I'm like, that's interesting. All right, we're getting some more developments here, going into my theory of how maybe the Death Troopers became a thing. Crosshair has his little ragtag crew.
Crosshair's
so
Angels.
That was an interesting Crosshair's Angels. Obviously, I think Howzer's a very big part of this now. I mean, obviously he's breathtaking, but his part in the story is actually really important too, which I thought was cool. Him and Crosshair's little relationship getting a little dicey, right?
Yep.
Crosshair definitely doesn't like him. And then we see Howzer really struggling in this episode to obey the Empire. And we kind of see that towards the end. Obviously, he starts to defect a little bit, and which made me think like, all right, if Howzer's feeling this way, what other clones could be feeling this way, and what's causing it? Right. What is happening here to make him act the way he's acting? And that opens up a really big question because we don't have answers there. And he has his little speech to his team at the end, right? And he starts talking about, I'm sick of doing this. This is not like essentially not what I signed up for, even though you didn't really sign up for it. You kind of were born into this and that's your life.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day with Howzer, we love him. I love his teamsmanship here. And I love how, he really does take a big turn. And I thought that was like probably the most interesting plot point here. And then obviously we get a lot of Crosshair in this episode too. So, at the end, spoiler alert, Crosshair's like, all right, I want to hunt them, permission to hunt them. Right. And now Hunter becomes the hunted. So kind of all over the place with my notes there, but
that's fine. I mean, that's your impression. I want to hear that.
Yeah, that's just like I just watched the episode probably 30 minutes ago. So those are my like initial big points that I thought of. What about you?
Right. To play off what you're saying, I agree with the writing. The writing really stood out to me in this episode, and the dialogue exchange between all the characters felt very natural. Not to say that it hasn't in other episodes, but it just felt like it flowed very, very well. And the story beats that they were trying to hit in this episode felt like they didn't miss. And so that was a huge standout to me in this episode. And I liked the dialogue, like little things like Tech would say, oh, children overreact. Just like the way like those lines were delivered and how the characters were playing off each other's dynamics felt very real. And I don't really know how to explain it beyond that, but it was very, very good. I also was really surprised at the end when the clones lay down their weapons after Howzer's speech. That was a really big part of the episode for me, because now that's showing us that the clones' free will hasn't entirely been lost. And we're shown now that the chips are not totally infallible, which is very interesting to me, because you get the impression from the Clone Wars that the chips just take over the clones and they take over their personalities, and they have nothing. It makes them a void in a sense. And so to see that the chips aren't having a full effect, that they can be fought off, was a huge point for me in the episode. And I honestly, and this is coming from somebody who was totally afraid that Howzer was going to be shot down by the other clones.
Yep.
And he wasn't.
Yeah. Or Crosshair. I thought Crosshair was going to shoot him.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, if you kill him, I'm going to be so blood red angry. I genuinely thought Crosshair was just going to go pew and just.
No, me too. And I said this, I don't know if you watched my reaction video, but in my reaction video, I was like, if Crosshair kills Howzer, I do not want him redeemed at all. Like, you can kill Crosshair. You kill Howzer, you're gone. I'm sorry.
I'm already kind of on the kill Crosshair train. Like,
yeah, me too.
He's become pretty hateable.
But finishing up my initial thoughts on the episode, I think Hunter, he had a really interesting conflict in this episode, because you see he's trying to pick and choose now his battles. Does he want to be a soldier? He has this new responsibility with, essentially his family here. And I got the impression from Hunter, looking at Howzer and Howzer's reaction towards the other clone, that it was kind of planting the seeds of Hunter's like confusion on whether or not they should go back for Crosshair, his conflict on that. And so those were the main standout points of the episode, but I thought it was a great second part. I was interested to see where they were going to take this in the first part, but now that they finished this two-parter, I think it was so good. I really liked it.
I do too. There was so many cool elements. I don't know what it was, and I totally agree with you on the dialogue too. It felt very real, and that's why I was saying, like, I did think the animation also complemented that, and I think the animation in this entire season has been good. Like, it's just crazy how far they've come since like a Clone Wars. Like, just the movements look so natural, and like there's little things too. Like, there's a moment where Tech is talking to Omega or something, and he like pushes up his glasses as he's talking. It's like those little details that you're like, that's so realistic. It looks like people are acting it out. I don't know how they do it. It's
Yeah.
scary good. It's almost like Uncanny Valley. You know, the Uncanny Valley where,
Yeah.
people start to get freaked out by looking at, computerized people or robots and stuff. It's almost to that point. Like, it's scary good.
Right.
And I think the dialogue was a huge part of that as well. So I totally agree. It felt very natural. They hit all those beats like perfectly. There was nothing forced in this at all. And there's been a couple episodes where there's been some lines that, they needed to sneak in to get some plot points out.
Right.
This did not feel that way at all. And it was a great second parter. I like this. This is one of the better episodes in the last couple that we've seen, in my opinion. And I agree with you too. The whole defection of the clones thing, where are they going to go with that? Because that was super intentional. And that raises such a big question, which is like, all right, how do these chips interact with these clones? And who else is going to be able to defect? And where are they going to take that part of the story? Because that's kind of been a theme,
right.
The chips have been a huge theme throughout the entire season. So where's it going to go from here? And so it brings up some really interesting questions.
It does. It does bring up some questions. Would you like to talk about questions now? Would you like to look at the questions now?
Let's go. I want to hear what the viewers have to say. Let's hear what everyone else has to say about this, because we had some great questions last week and some great contributions to the show.
We did. Honestly, I don't think this show would be like half as fun if we didn't have these questions to play off of.
Yeah, we need the participation. That's what makes it interesting. You bring up points that we haven't even thought about, and the little details that they sneak in there, because it's a very detail-oriented show.
It is. Let's see what you guys had to say this week. So our first question is from Casey.Hannah. And she says, I've got a question for the podcast. So I really loved the dialogue in this episode. There were many interesting moments, especially between Hunter and Omega. One line that got me was when she told him that she would also save them. I'm sensing some foreshadowing here. What do you guys think of this?
That's a very interesting line. I'm so glad. Who's this user again? What's her name?
Casey.Hannah.
Casey.Hannah, I'm so glad you brought this point up, because you're reminding me I meant to talk about this. I love that line. There might be some foreshadowing going on here for sure. But the other thing I was kind of thinking was like, all right, if I'm thinking of this from Hunter's perspective, I kind of agree with him. It's like, I necessarily need to get involved with something that's not really my problem at the end of the day? It's this rogue group of clones. You can understand his motivation, right? But then I think Omega kind of comes with that line and like brings it back down to earth, and he's just like trying to bring the human aspect of their motivations in here. And the foreshadowing thing you bring up is interesting, because you're right, like something big is going to happen. I don't exactly know where Omega is going to play in. Could it be some kind of thing where she sacrifices herself somehow, not necessarily dying, but separates herself to save the rest of the Bad Batch somehow? So that's a really interesting point to bring up, because there is going to be some big oh no moment towards the end of this season, and like that could be a big hint as to what we see. So I'm glad you bring that up.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Essentially the same thing that you just said. I don't think these people creating the show are walking into it without a plan. And so every bit of dialogue has to be intentional. It has to move your story forward, other than it's just, dialogue. And so I can also see a big dramatic moment happening where they're ripped apart by circumstance, but Omega is the one who initiates that, because she's learned from them and she's becoming like, she's maturing into this young person who's making like these choices and having a life outside of Camino. So I definitely agree with Casey. I just think that at the end of the day, dialogue is there for a purpose. And so I definitely think that was hinting towards Omega making a difficult choice, because she strikes me as that kind of character.
I'm glad you bring that up. You can also tell she's getting smarter and smarter each episode. There's little things that hint towards that. She comes up with the distraction in this episode. And you're totally right. And I completely agree with you. This is actually like such an important thing when you're watching like TV and movies. Like, if dialogue, every piece of dialogue and every scene should move the plot forward in some way, shape, or form. You should not have a scene that doesn't have character development in it, or is not moving the plot line forward. And so like some people would think, no, it's just filler lines. That's not how this works. That's not how these people think of it. Like the storytelling has to be succinct because you only got 30 minutes to tell the show. So you have to cram in as much as possible. So, it's always worth analyzing every single thing people say because it's a storytelling device at the end of the day. The other interesting thing she said too was, which I thought was a cool line, not necessarily a ton of weight behind it, but when she's like, oh, he's my brother, Hunter's my brother. They all are, I'm like, yep, brotherly dynamic, boom. But then it also kind of just drives home that point, like sometimes you need to get those things reinforced, like kind of reminds you, oh yeah, she's a clone, because it's easy to not constantly have that in your mind because, she's a girl and we haven't seen a girl clone like that before. She's a girl Boba Fett, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's easy to forget that. But then when lines like that help bring you back into like, all right, it kind of meshes the story together more and helps remind you what it is and where it could possibly go.
Yeah, that's a great observation from Casey. So thank you so much for that question. I think you're definitely right. I think that's foreshadowing the show moving forward. So, okay. So I've thought a lot about this, but Hidden Scribble is back. And Hidden Scribble says, y'all have already guessed, probably correctly, that there's going to be a rebellion on Kamino. And I have a couple thoughts on that. So do you know I think it's okay. So I'm gonna start this by saying I don't know everything in Star Wars Legends. And so I'm just putting that out there right now. I have a very basic understanding of what happens in Star Wars Legends, but I don't know everything. One of the thing in Legends is that there was a Kaminoan uprising. Have you heard about that, Matt, on Kamino?
Yeah, I remember hearing about this. I don't know many details. I'm like you, I'm not super familiar with Legends, but I've definitely heard of this.
Right. So I pulled it up on Wikipedia before we started the episode. And okay, so there's like
by the way, shout out to Wikipedia, amazing resource for everything Star Wars. You have no idea how many times I've gone there when I'm like watching a movie or something and I want to know like what's the background behind that guy in the back edge of the bar or whatever, and you can look it up and the guy has a name and you can figure out every detail. So shout out to Wikipedia, amazing resource for Star Wars fans.
Okay, so I'm going to read a bit. I'm not going to read the whole Wikipedia article. If you guys want to look it up, it's the Kamino Uprising on Wikipedia. Go ahead and read it and make of it what you will. But this is very interesting. It's from the 501st Journal. This is a quote from the 501st Journal. And it says, officially, there was never a clone rebellion on Kamino. Unofficially, approximately 20 years after we were created, a special detachment of the Imperial 501st Legion was dispatched to Kamino with orders to eradicate an army of clones that had been bred to take arms against the Empire. Our mission commander, an expert on the inner workings of Kamino, was a young bounty hunter named Boba Fett. That's an entry from the 501st Journal. And this is in Legends. So basically, it says that the Kamino Uprising was a conflict in 12 BBY on the aquatic planet Kamino, the origin world of the Grand Army of the Republic, during the waning days of the Old Republic. After having spent the better part of the last couple decades growing clone troopers for the Old Republic and stormtroopers for the Galactic Empire under Emperor Palpatine, a group of Kaminoans went rogue, using their cloning resources to grow an army with the intent of combating Palpatine's new order. And so, sorry that was super lengthy. Number one. Number two, Hidden Scribble is bringing up the Kaminoan uprising. And that is interesting to me because I wonder if they're going to bring that concept back into canon, but changing it ever so slightly so that the clones will, as we've seen in Bad Batch, re-access, if you want to put it that way, their free will and turn against the Empire. But I wonder if they're going to rewrite that and bring that into Bad Batch in a way where the clones will recognize that the Empire is wrong and rebel against them. Hence why the Empire decommissions the clones and goes to conscripted soldiers, because the clones, the chip is just defective. and it loses its
Ooh.
effect over time. And I'm
That's
sorry.
super interesting.
I'm sorry if that was a very lengthy explanation. If you guys want to read more about this, go on Wikipedia. But I think that they could reintroduce the Kaminoan uprising and bring it into Bad Batch.
They're definitely foreshadowing something like that with what happened at the end of this episode, you know?
Right.
Because if some clones could, like, and by the way, we don't know what's going to happen with these guys. We don't know if they're going to have like a zero tolerance policy and like execute them or something, which, by the way, if they kill Howzer, I hate the show and I want to delete the whole show. If this is the first time something like this has happened, then what you just brought up is super interesting, because there's definitely room for something like that to happen. And maybe that's what like more of what season 2 could be about. If there is a season 2, do we know if there's going to be a season 2?
I have no idea. It's been so vague. Everything I've seen about the future of this show has been so vague. So I can't speak to that. I think they could rewrite the Kamino uprising and then bring it into Bad Batch, but bring it into Bad Batch in a way where the clones start realizing slowly, because their chips are wearing off, that what the Empire is doing is wrong. And so they start turning against the Empire, and the Empire somehow has to get it under control, eventually leading to them saying, okay, you guys are decommissioned. We're retiring you. You're done. Because even in Rebels, Rex has a line that he says to Ezra Bridger. He says, didn't you hear? The Empire's retired us, said we're no longer useful. And so I'm thinking like maybe we're tying that line back in. So,
yeah. And the Rebel ties obviously very strong in the last 2 episodes here. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely a possibility. And that makes sense. It's just like how it takes a long time to get conscripted soldiers, you know? So how long before the Empire is self-sufficient enough without the clones that they can do that, something like that?
Think about this too. They enhanced Crosshair's chip to be stronger.
Yep.
And to increase the influence over him. Imagine having to do that with all of the clones over time. That would be exhausting.
Yeah, that's true. Here's the thing I don't really understand though. Like when they, in the first episode, I think is when it is, when the Bad Batch comes back to Kamino, they walk in and all the clones are like, they're acting different, right? Mm-hmm. They walk in and all like, oh wow, you know, what kind of sticks up your butt kind of thing. And all the clones seem different, but we're not getting that same vibe from these ones on Ryloth. Like they don't seem inherently changed by Order 66 or anything. I don't really understand how that comes in. Like I thought the chips did inherently change them, but we're not getting that same vibe now with what happened in this episode. I don't know. What do you think about that?
It's interesting because the other thing that I've been trying to figure out is they don't necessarily need to see a Jedi, do they? We've talked about this before. I mean, think about this too. There are no Jedi on Ryloth, at least not that we know of, right? Like Cham is the general and he is a Twi'lek. So do they need to see a Jedi to fully conform to the Order 66 call? Or is that something like when Howzer was speaking to all of the clones at the end, he's like, this is wrong and you know it's wrong and we can't be a part of this. And they all threw down their shields and their weapons. Would they have done that if a Jedi was there?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point because like maybe but we don't know if Order 66 was implemented to every single clone. Maybe only the clones with Jedi who were leading them. Right? Because that's what Order 66 means, right? It's like kill the Jedi, essentially.
Right.
So maybe it was never like triggered for them, I guess. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
No, that's fine. And with what Rex says in Battle Scars, he says not all clones carry it out. It's like some clones are immune, and Howzer is the best example of that.
He has to be because when did Rex say that? Like 2 episodes before we meet Howzer, you know? So that could have been foreshadowing.
Yeah. That could have been, we thought it was pertaining to Cut, but now that I'm looking at it, that totally just could have been pertaining to Howzer.
Yeah.
So I don't,
interesting.
I don't know. These are the questions that I have is like, why are some clones reacting to Order 66? Why are some clones not? Do they need to see a Jedi? Do they not need to see a Jedi? Do they still have free will? Does the chip wear off? I mean, these are all really interesting questions. But again, I think it's all going to converge on the finale. And I do think
these next couple episodes, I mean, now that Crosshair's chasing him, I think these next couple episodes this is when it's going to really start picking up.
Also,
and we're gonna get a lot more plot points. It's gonna be like jam-packed, I think.
I do too. But I can see them rewriting the Camino Uprising and putting it into this show in a very different way. But I can totally see that happening.
Yeah, 100%. It would fit in great after what events have happened so far. So that's a really interesting point. See, this is why we like the questions.
Yeah, these questions are great.
Interesting commentary here. Yeah.
Hidden Scribble, you also had a lot of other things to say. Let me skim through this real quick. Oh, I'd love this. Hidden Scribble also says, what if Howzer is broken out by the Bad Batch and helps lead the rebellion, the Camino rebellion with Rex? I would love, and I said this in my reaction video, I would love it if Howzer joined the Bad Batch. I would 100% be on board with that. I think we will see him again. I just don't think it'll be in these next few episodes.
It's the fact that he doesn't have like a whole lot of background, like in backstory. And he is kind of, I hate to say it, he is kind of a disposable character. Like, since there is no background, like if he could die. I'm not saying they should, and I would hate that if they did kill him, but he could, right? Because he doesn't. I don't think they will. I think the Bad Batch could break him out because he helped them. I think it'd kind of be a waste of a character if they killed him, but anything can happen with this guy. So who knows what's going to happen? I think that does make a lot of sense, though, him eventually leading an uprising. Because he's clearly had it up to here. He's done.
Yeah, Howzer's so over. And I think Rex is also going to come back in the finale. So it would be interesting if we got like an Avengers moment where all the clones come back.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. No. It'll be the clone theme.
Oh yeah,
that theme. It's the
oh yeah. Okay, you were just singing it poorly. I'm just kidding.
To hear you give it a shot.
I'm kidding.
Moving on. Hidden Scribble, you had a lot to say, but we do need to move on to other questions. But thank you for all of your thoughts. You bring such an interesting take to the show, and we appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the next question is from, Zukong24. Zukong24 said a similar thing to Hidden Scribble. The question says, will a clone uprising happen during the series? I would really like to see that happen. I think there's so much.
It's going to be hard to jam that in, but I think, I think it's possible. I'm afraid to try to predict anything with these next couple episodes because they could go so many different directions.
I would like to see that happen.
I also thought like maybe more like Fennec and Boba Fett would maybe come into play in these next, like there's so many. They could do a clone uprising thing. They could do something with the rebellion, like the seeds of that. Like there's so many different things they could do. So who knows? But I think that makes a lot of sense if they did a clone uprising storyline.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Zukong24. The next question is from Julie Alley. And Julie Alley says, why do you think Howzer's speech broke through to the other clones? Do you want to give that a go?
I don't know. You give it a go first. I would like to hear your thoughts.
It reminded me of when Fives is yelling at the 501st when he and Jesse are about to be executed by General Krell in the Umbara arc. And Fives gives his speech and he's like, we're not unthinking droids, we're men. And he's yelling at the clones. And this is like right as the execution squad is about to kill him and Jesse. That reminded me of that scene in Clone Wars. It felt very similar when Howzer is yelling at all the clones. He's like, this is wrong. Like what we are doing right now is wrong. And so I saw a little bit of reflection there. Yeah.
And that's a great parallel right there because the show's full of parallels we've seen so far. The biggest thing for me that I noticed with that scene was right beforehand, he's like, I can't abandon my men. They're good men. So he obviously has a connection with these guys and he knows that he feels confident enough that they trust him. And they clearly do. Not everyone drops their weapons and stuff, but there's enough of them there that he clearly has a close relationship with. And you have to remember, they're all the same person at the end of the day. So you're obviously going to feel more closer and have more camaraderie with someone that you're on the ground floor with, working with on a daily basis, who's you for all intents.
Right.
So I think that line that he had beforehand really hinted to that. Like he clearly has a good relationship with them. And I think that's why his words had gravity.
now that you're mentioning this, I'm thinking back to Rex and Ahsoka. You know, like Rex fought off the chip for a while before he like fired at Ahsoka, and a lot of that was because they had all that camaraderie and they had a bond prior to that. Now, granted, Rex also knew about fives, and so I think that was definitely playing into, I know what's going on and I know this is wrong and I can't shoot at her. Like, and so I think that was coming into play. But I think you hit the nail on the head. I think a large part of it is relationship driven. You know, having a prior relationship with somebody and like being close, and they're saying things that make sense. So there had to be something that like got through on an emotional level, because the chip is very robotic. You know, it makes them into something else entirely. But when you bring in the emotional aspect, it seems that's where it gets tricky. And so the best example I can think of is Rex and Ahsoka being as close as they are, leading to Rex's struggle, and Howzer, you know, relating to these clones. They're literally him. Maybe that hit different because they are the same person.
Yeah. No, there's definitely something to that. I think, you know, it's a relationship thing. It's big.
Yeah.
You know,
and they keep heightening that. So I think a large part of that too is there's not a Jedi around. You know, maybe the Jedi increases the effects.
That's what the programming was made there for, right? So if it's not there, there's nothing really causing them to be aggressive towards one person or another. Still, they are human at the end of the day. The chip isn't their entire personality. It's just a mechanism to destroy the Jedi, essentially, at the end of the day. So if the Jedi aren't there, it's probably not going to have as strong of an effect.
Right. Thank you, Julie Allie. Wow, they're killing it with the questions this week. So good. Our next question is from, hi, Rustic Space Fiddle. I know Rustic Space Fiddle. And Rustic Space Fiddle just says,
Great name.
Yeah, fantastic. She's also, by the way, go check out Rustic Space Fiddle's art. Amazing. So good. You want to check it out. You'll get so many feelings. That is my plug. Okay. Anyway, so Rustic Space Fiddle says, loved Omega innocently laying down the true purpose of being a soldier and Hunter just being heart. And then there's a heart. I love how Omega grounds them. She brings them back to like level 1, and she's like, stop thinking like a soldier and start thinking like a human. And I love that.
Yeah, because they're not really, I mean, they are soldiers, but they're not doing what they were doing a couple years ago anymore.
No, they really weren't. Yeah.
It's different.
Thank you, Rustic Space Fiddle. The next question is from Luna _Tenebris. Whatever. Sorry. Botching names again. That's my thing. And they say, I was happy that Hera's mom didn't die because I expected it. Because I was expecting to see her brutally murdered. Yeah, same. I'm shocked. I'm relieved, but I'm shocked.
That doesn't mean she's not going to get murdered next episode.
Well, I guess it would have been a bit much, you know, like if you just bring the Bad Batch back to come back and save her mom and her mom just dies, like then that brings up another issue that the Bad Batch have to deal with. So I kind of understand why they didn't do it.
Yeah, I did too. And maybe they're trying to build up to that moment more, you know, so maybe if they do another season, they'll build up to it more in that season, or maybe it'll come in this season towards the end and they'll have some, you know, big crazy thing that happens. And you know, again, goes back to what I was saying earlier. There's so many directions they can go and so many different things they can do and plot points that they can squeeze in to these last couple episodes.
Well, so they have to be careful too how much they introduce. If you think about that, like if they introduce another unfinished thread, then that's something else that they have to tie up at the end of the show. So they're probably picking and choosing very carefully what they want to do. So
but we know what's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it happens, right?
Mm-hmm. Next question is from Aurora Dawn, and Aurora Dawn says, I loved the episode, but I wish there was more talk / effort on rescuing Crosshair. What do you think about that? Just from the Bad Batch. Do you think
what are they supposed to do? You know, like capture him and throw a net around him and then like get his chip out? I don't know. I mean, I guess you're right. That is kind of a fair point to bring up. Like it's someone who's like part of your team, you know, and you kind of just let him go. But what are you supposed to do? You're running into a hornet's nest of the Empire to go rescue this guy. It's not an easy task, right?
Oh.
So I kind of get it. And, he's out there to kill you. You got to be really careful. You're throwing your life on the line to save this guy who we've been talking about this all season. Is he redeemable? We don't really know. It seems to me like the Bad Batch doesn't think he's redeemable. They haven't really talked about him a lot. So I think that maybe that is a fair point. Like they haven't even really discussed it. It's just like, oh,
he's trying to kill us.
Sucks. Yeah. Sucks. Crosshair's trying to kill us. That sucks. What are we going to do? Nothing. And they don't really, mention it. But I mean, what are you supposed to do? It's not an easy task.
Well, Hunter's priorities are clearly changing too. Like in the second episode, he's like, we don't leave our own behind. And then his priorities change the more he realizes that Omega is in danger and he has to keep his squad safe. But now you can kind of see that conflict coming back into play. It's like, okay, what matters more to me here? Am I supposed to ditch my brother or am I supposed to protect my squad? So I think that conflict is building up a little bit more as we've seen over this particular episode. And I think that's going to play into the finale.
Excellent point. Yeah, that's definitely a struggle within him.
Yeah. I don't really have any other. Well, first of all, those are all our questions. So thank you guys. Fantastic questions this week. Killing it on the questions front. They're getting better and better with each episode. So thank you. This really makes the show. You guys are awesome.
Yes, we love these questions. This is what makes it. It's the glue that ties things together. It's a communal thing. We're all supposed to talk about this as fans.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for that.
Figure it out. Yeah, it's great questions. I love those questions this week and last week. They were amazing. So keep writing in.
Yeah, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much. And we love you. So appreciate you. Final thoughts on the episode. I love Crosshair's theme. I just want to throw that out there. He's got such a cool theme. I love it. It's awesome. I thought it was really funny that he asked Admiral Rampart for permission to hunt them down, because I was like, wait, isn't that what you've been doing?
Yeah. Well, I think he just wants to be able to dedicate all his time towards getting them now, instead of like doing these weird side missions for the Empire.
There's like permission to be the boss and the boss level of this show, granted.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny. But I thought this was a great two-parter. I was interested to see how they tied it together. I was not disappointed at all. Any final thoughts, Matt, before we give our
No, closing? The last thought is we didn't talk about this at all, but Chopper's kind of a hero. Little Chopper.
Little Chopper.
Chopper.
Yeah,
Little Chopper. Great droid, kind of a hero. He just deserves a shout out. He's great. He crushed it. Nice work, little buddy. Cool droid. Deserves a shout out. Chopper's kind of a boss, so we appreciate you.
Chopper is a boss. Thank you, Chopper. We appreciate you so much. And on that note, I just want to say his kill count, dude.
He slays. That's what I'm saying. He's kind of a hero. He puts himself out there.
No, this is funny. In Rebels, his kill count is ridiculous. He straight up murders another droid because he's jealous of a droid. Not even kidding.
Today too. In the last episode, he like electrocutes the droid. We don't know what that droid's ruined now. Chopper doesn't care, dude. He's low key awesome.
Yeah, Chopper's great. Side note.
Sorry, what?
I hope Dave Filoni is having the time of his life coming back to that character, because that's Dave Filoni playing our favorite cat-like droid. Yes, that's Dave. And so now when I was watching this episode, I was losing my mind. I'm like, Dave Filoni is just having such a good time coming back to the role of Chopper. So. Anyway, Chopper, we love you.
All right, guys.
And with that, thank you for tuning in this week. We are super excited about where the show is going to go in its concluding, 4 episodes? We got 4 episodes.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
We're getting to the end. We're winding down.
So if you guys have not liked or subscribed to our YouTube channel, Another Star Wars Podcast, you should go do that now. If you prefer a more visual way of listening to our show. We are also on Instagram and Twitter at @star_wars_pod. We are on Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and that link will be below. Yeah, did I cover everything, Matt?
You got it all. Thanks for the questions again, guys. We appreciate it. And we will see you guys next week.
Yes. I'm so excited.
Great couple episodes. Let's buckle in. See how this thing ends.
Woohoo! Okay, guys. See you later.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Peace out.